Thanks, Jackie. Hi, everyone. Well, right on cue. Of course, we're now behind you here in Berlin. It's 6 in the evening here, not 7 where you are. It's starting to rain, as the weather forecast said it would. But question is, will it dampen people's spirits for this big election right in the very heart of Europe? So welcome to our special election coverage with me, Kevin Owen, and of course Nikki Aaron with me.
Yes, hello. The result of Sunday's vote will determine whether Chancellor Merkel will remain in power for a fourth term.
So in case you've missed any of the build-up thus far, we squeezed together all the highlights of this election season into just 50 seconds.
Welcher Partei kann sich das Leben etwas besser entwickeln?
SPD.
Christlich-Demokratische Union.
AfD. Wir sind skeptisch.
Mann, ist das heiß. Ich nenne das einen Anschlag auf die Demokratie.
Und wahrscheinlich ist Wahlkampf doch auch ganz schön anstrengend.
Angela Merkel als Mutter Teresa.
Feinde der Demokratie an der Regierung.
Mutter Angela.
Feinde der Demokratie auch in unserem Land.
Brauchen wir eine starke politische Mitte.
Also wir sind skeptisch.
Such a useful 50 seconds of information there. Well, the final campaign rallies took place in major cities across the country, with candidates doing their utmost to breathe new life into their political image.
Angela Merkel showing off her first aid skills at a rally in northern Germany to the sounds and the rhythms, of course, of the Bee Gees, if you're old enough to remember that. Little classic from them, Staying Alive. We think she's going to stay alive in this. Question is how much she's going to be dented, maybe a couple of percentage points, I think, in this vote. Doctors say that song's tempo is highly suited for performing CPR. We don't think she's going to need it. Well, you never know, do you? Because what a year it's been, Nikki. Well, with Trump, with Brexit, well, last year, but you never know.
You never know what to expect these days. Well, the atmosphere was quite cheerful at the event, as you can see, but it was in stark contrast to an earlier rally in Munich. Take a look at this.
Mit Pfeifen und mit Brüllen wird man die Zukunft Deutschlands mit Sicherheit nicht gestalten.
Oh, Angela Merkel being booed and whistled at there while she was trying to win over any floating voters. Well, around 200 protesters heckled the Chancellor, and a number of people were even arrested.
Yeah, now Angela Merkel is somewhat, of course, without offending her here, it could be described as a political dinosaur. She's going to love us for that. She has, though, been in power for 12 years now. Unlike the dinosaurs, she looks nowhere near extinction. She's going to make it through by all accounts. In fact, if she is elected for a fourth time, her time in office could equal that of her mentor, Germany's longest-serving leader, Helmut Kohl.
And what an eventful time it's been for her as well. Over the years, Angela Merkel has had a fair share of crises, to say the least. The Euro crisis, the migrant crisis, and of course, a number of deadly terror attacks.
A million migrants coming into the country in a year. That's a heck of a lot of people to contend with on every level, the admin, the social side of it. Paying look after these guys. It'd be enough to topple many a politician, but not Merkel. She's made it through. She's carefully shifted her stance, if you look carefully at it over time, to capture the public mood.
Those who have been persecuted, who are refugees displaced by war, should be allowed in Europe.
Und wenn ich könnte,
If I could, I would turn back time many, many years to prepare better, together with the entire government and those responsible for the refugees.
Well, one thing that Angela Merkel is rather good at is making U-turns. Take gay marriage, for instance.
Mrs. Merkel is pathetic. Since 2005, you supported discrimination against gays and lesbians and did nothing to bring about equality.
Yeah, at one point, Merkel's party opposed gay marriage, but the public wanted it. So she let Parliament legalise it, voting against the move herself, apparently to save face. Apart from U-turns, Angela Merkel's also fond of taking or maybe stealing credit too for some of these things.
Dass wir die BAföG-Zahlungen voll übernehmen. Wir haben die Finanzierungserhöhungen. Wir haben die Finanzierungserhöhung der...
Die durchgesetzt, Frau Bundeskanzlerin, gegen den Süden.
Ach so. Ja, die Dinge passt. Herr Heil, wir haben...
Well, Peter Oliver reports now on how Angela Merkel is seen through the lens of different regions of Germany.
Cast an eye over this German election campaign, and it seems, well, like a done deal. Angela Merkel will remain in the Chancellor's office just behind me. But away from Mrs. Merkel's popularity nationwide, there are pockets of dissent, those that are unhappy and frustrated with the policies of Berlin. Like here in Dresden. Despite the opulence of the old town, this city is the capital of one of the poorest states in Germany. It's a conservative hotbed as well. In fact, it's the only major city in the country that leans politically to the right. Dresden is also the birthplace of the anti-immigration protest movement Pegida. While their numbers have dropped off across the country, as we can see here in Dresden, they're still drawing a crowd.
Why don't we support Merkel? Because she, with her open border policies and whatever she says, isn't moving us forward. Now the refugees are here and she should stand up and admit her mistakes. But she doesn't. She should offer solutions and not muddle through the issue.
I'm not happy with this whole refugee policy that's been in place over the last 2 years. The German people have not been asked. She decided this all by herself.
Warmongering. Why should I support her? We're throwing bombs, so we get refugees.
The big problem is opening of the border, and we got millions of people coming to Germany, refugees, but we didn't know who is it, what do they do here, what are they doing over here, and this makes people very uncertainty, of course, about the future.
I've travelled around 500 kilometres to the northwest to the port city of Hamburg. And the problems people were telling me about in Dresden, well, they don't seem to matter as much to people here.
This is probably because there is extreme polarization happening in our society. But the reasons for such political division in our society have stemmed from the government in previous years. They make half of the country poorer, the middle class almost non-existent, and the rich even richer.
The second largest and one of the richest cities in Germany, Hamburg's also home to far-left and anarchist groups. In fact, just over my right shoulder here is the Rote Flora. Now, this former theatre turned squat. It was here that a lot of the demonstrations for the G20 were organised. But as we remember from that G20, some of those demonstrations turned violent.
In politics, violence is never a way. It must be always dialogue. We want peace and we want that everyone has equal social rights. And that's why we are so strong in opposition to Angela Merkel, because at the moment the politics is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
It could be argued that Angela Merkel has been so long-lived as German Chancellor due to her claiming of the political centre ground for her own. But as she looks set to claim a historic fourth term, it will be with voices of dissent from both the left and the right. Peter Oliver, RT, Berlin.
Well, those polling stations are not open for 14 hours yet. They open at 8 o'clock in the morning here. 61.5 million people have got over the age of 18 have got the chance to vote. Our correspondent Daniel Hawkins has been busy gauging the political mood right now, finding out what the public really think about this election, where the main fight is going to be playing out. Here he is.
There's no major surprises being expected, no shock results being anticipated. This election is more about this changing landscape of domestic politics in Germany and more of a litmus test for Angela Merkel's current popularity and voters' confidence in her policies. We've been out in central Berlin all day speaking to people. This is the word on the streets.
We have kind of a stalemate, you know, nothing's really moving. Politicians, our chancellor, she is pretty good on one hand side, on the other hand side, she's since 12 years now in office. And so I think this is definitely time for a change, to have fresh power, even if she is a powerful woman.
I think it will stay more or less the way it is. There will be no groundbreaking difference because Merkel will carry on, and that's good.
I just read this morning that it's just as predictable as Hillary Clinton becoming the next US president, so you never know. And I heard people, including myself, about trying to vote strategically to avoid Angela Merkel going together with the FDP, because that would be kind of a neoliberal coalition that many, including myself, want to avoid having.
Or maybe we're happy that not many things is going to change, because I think a lot of things are pretty okay. So big change always covers a big risk as well.
Oh, I think a lot has to be changed. I, for one, am not a fan of Merkel. No one that I know is a fan of Merkel, and I hope that we will cause a big change.
I think many commentators would agree there's no deep divisions or heated passions for this election, but really the voters can be divided into several distinct groups. The Merkel fans, who think the CDU is the way forward, they're happy with the status quo. Those who feel there is need for a change and for some fresh faces, but within the confines of mainstream political discourse, perhaps voting for the Social Democrats or the Freedom Democratic Party, the FDP, but all within the centrist framework. Those voting for fringe parties and those voting to stop those fringe parties, namely the AfD. They've made some surprise last-minute gains, going up a couple of percentage points. They could be in for their first seats in the Bundestag, the first right-wing party, far-right party considered by many to do so in modern German history. Can they be the next German opposition party? That could be the biggest change coming out of this election. We'll find out soon enough.
Now, because of the AfD's radical anti-immigration platform, all the leading parties have already ruled out forming a coalition with it. Both Merkel and Scholz are prepared, though, to make a pact with some of the others. Now, let's talk about the Greens. It's a relatively small party and only have a very short history, but they do have a very notable background.
They do indeed. The party was only founded in 1980 and first entered Parliament 3 years later. It's already been part of a ruling coalition for 8 years, and its then leader even served as the German foreign minister at one point. A party member told us what they're standing for this time around, though.
It's obvious that you're the last generation who can't survive this planet. You can't see all of the catastrophes all across the globe, coming, extreme weather in West Africa and in South Asia and in south of United States and the Caribbean. And this is why we are lobbying for this issue for years. We are also unhappy with our own government, talking about climate change a lot, but not doing a lot. We're going to change that. Definitely have a closer ties and a more affiliation of the program between us and the Social Democrats. But to be honest, I do not care who gonna do what we want them to do. So our goal is that we come into a government with our program and we get more climate change in this country, more social justice in this country, and more liberty and freedom.
Well, however confident the Chancellor and her CDU party may be, Merkel's main rival, the Social Democrats leader Martin Schulz, says he refuses to believe she's already won. Schulz says he hopes a last-minute swing could still happen. While seeking to win over undecided voters, the former European Parliament president is positioning himself as a man of the people.
Martin Schulz, Angela Merkel's fiercest rival in the race for the German chancellery. Here's how the world knows him: as the leader of Germany's Social Democratic Party, and also as the former president of the European Parliament. But what many don't know, at least outside Germany, are the ups and downs that have marred his early days. Let's start at the beginning. Martin Schulz's troubles began at high school, from which he never graduated. He wanted to be a professional footballer, but a knee injury put an end to those dreams. Schulz started drinking, and was diagnosed as a serious alcoholic by the time he was 24. It was so bad that he even contemplated suicide. Luckily, he turned his life around, opened a bookstore, and eventually got himself elected as the mayor of his hometown. Schulz's rags to riches story peaked in 2012, when he was elected the president of the European Parliament, transforming him from small-town mayor into powerful Eurocrat. The perks reportedly included 2 limos and over 30 aides, which angered some fellow MEPs.
The Queen of Sheba probably had less staff, certainly less chauffeurs. I can't decide if Martin Schulz is a Bollinger Bolshevik or a foie gras federalist.
Schulz was also accused of using his position to help his good friend, the European Commission chief and former Luxembourg Prime Minister Jean-Claude Juncker, by blocking the probe into a Luxembourg scandal in which big companies got generous tax breaks. Now back from Brussels, Schulz is seeking to dethrone Angela Merkel, accusing her of arrogance, while presenting himself as a man of the people. Given the struggle Schulz endured in his early days, it's likely that many relate to him as a man who understands real hardship. But his more recent Brussels baggage indicates voters might find it difficult to tell him apart from the Iron Chancellor he's trying to oust.
Well, that's the wrap from central Berlin so far. As we said, Nikki, earlier on, Germans are renowned for being precise, and precisely when the weather forecasters said it would rain at 6 o'clock, it rained. And looking at the weather forecast, it's going to rain through the night into tomorrow as well. Interesting if that's going to turn into the polls tomorrow. They open in 14 hours' time, just a bit less, 8 o'clock in the morning. 61.5 million people could turn out to vote. Which way is it going to go? We've got great coverage coming up for the rest of the evening, all through tomorrow and on Monday as well. So be sure to stay with us. For now, though, it's Kevin Owen and Nikki saying goodbye. Maybe see you again in just about under an hour's time.